They took my office while I was out sick and gave it to someone who'd been here 6 months. Seniority isn't everything, my director smirked. He just fits the culture better. I didn't fight it. I just waited until facilities noticed my name still owned the lease ID and asked if I wanted to. I've never been one for drama. I'm the kind of person who keeps their head down, shows up early, leaves late, and doesn't get involved in the petty politics. I believed in that company. I believed in working hard and staying loyal. I thought if you did that long enough, it mattered. It didn't. When I got sick, it was bad. It started like a flu, but within a few days, I couldn't breathe right. My wife took me to the ER and they admitted me straight from there. I was in the hospital for 9 days. I don't remember most of it. After that, I spent another week at home hooked to oxygen, trying to eat solid food without throwing up. I felt like I was 90 years old. All that time, I kept checking my email. Not because I had to, just because I felt like I needed to stay connected. I got a generic get well soon email from HR and one from my manager that basically just said, rest up. That was it. When I finally returned, I was exhausted. My clothes hung off me. I'd lost almost 15 pounds. I still walked with a bit of a limp from lying down so long. The receptionist barely recognized me when I walked in. She gave me this weird look, not pity, more like surprise. I remember thinking that was odd. But I wasn't ready for what came next. I walked down the hallway, turned the corner to my usual spot, and saw the door open. My door. Someone else was inside, feet kicked up, coffee in hand, laughing on the phone. I stood there for a second, frozen. Then I noticed the stuff on the desk. My stuff was gone. All of it. My mouse pad, my framed photo, my notes, my old mugs, just gone. I checked the storage room. My things were in a cardboard box. Not even labeled. My nameplate was missing. I found the whiteboard eraser tossed in a drawer like trash. No explanation. No note. I walked straight to my director's office. She didn't even ask how I was feeling. Just looked at me like I was a problem showing up at her door. Connor's in there now, she said. We had to make some quick decisions while you were out. I said, but I didn't quit. She gave me this condescending smile, like I was a child who didn't understand the rules. Seniority isn't everything. Connor fits the culture better. He's a better face for the team. She said it like it was obvious. Like I should have seen this coming. I didn't yell. I didn't even sit down. I just nodded and left. They gave me a hot desk near the printer. No drawers. No monitors. I had to borrow a mouse from IT. Every time someone printed something, it rattled the whole desk. I kept my head down and tried to do my job, but it was hard. Really hard. I couldn't concentrate. People walked by me like I didn't matter anymore. Then one afternoon, I got the email from facilities. It said, "Hi, just confirming. The lease assignment for Office 2B is still under your name. Do you plan to continue occupying that space, or should we reassign it officially?" I stared at that line for a long time. For 9 years, I never asked for much. I never took sick days unless I was on the edge. I stayed quiet during layoffs, covered for coworkers, helped onboard every new hire in our division, including Connor. I even wrote him his first process doc. And now I was supposed to just hand over my space? I replied, "I'll keep the space for now, thank you." No one responded. But 4 days later, Connor's stuff was outside the door in a box. No one told me anything officially. I just walked in one morning, and the office was empty again. My nameplate still wasn't there, but my old monitor was back. So were my whiteboard notes. Someone had tried to wipe them, but you could still faintly see my writing. An hour later, I saw Connor walking down the hall, face flushed, talking to someone in HR. He didn't even look at me. No one said a word. Not my director. Not HR. Not facilities. It was like they were hoping I wouldn't say anything either. Like if we all pretended nothing happened, they wouldn't have to admit what they did. So I stayed quiet. For now. After I got my office back, no one said a word. Not a single acknowledgement. I didn't gloat. I didn't say anything smug. I just moved back in and shut the door. People started whispering more when I walked by. Connor wouldn't make eye contact. My director avoided me completely for the first week. But things didn't go back to normal. A few days after I returned to my office, I noticed a shift. Subtle, but there. I stopped getting meeting invites. I'd hear about updates only after the fact. Connor was still included on strategy calls, but I wasn't. I'd open documents and see edits made without me, decisions finalized without my input. I wasn't fired. I was being erased. Quietly, piece by piece. The same director who used to ask me to stay late now walked by like I didn't exist. One time, I tried to share a suggestion during a meeting, and she cut me off mid-sentence. "We've already moved forward on that," she said, without looking up from her screen. Connor got louder, more confident. He walked through the office like nothing had happened. He started copying things I used to do, sending out Monday updates, scheduling weekly check-ins, even reusing old slide templates I'd built from scratch. He'd slap his logo on them like they were his. A few of the newer people didn't even know I used to be the lead on those projects. One Friday afternoon, I was leaving a bit early for a follow-up doctor's appointment, and I passed a conference room where the door was cracked open. Inside, Connor was talking to someone from HR. I caught just a few words. Not fitting the current direction, resistance to culture shift, not collaborative. I didn't stop walking. I didn't say anything. But I started saving everything. Every email. Every file I ever created. Every version of a document I authored. I pulled archived copies from shared drives and backed up everything to a personal log, not to leak, just to have. My name was on all of it. Dates, timestamps, version histories. If they wanted to pretend I hadn't done anything, they'd have to try a lot harder. Then something strange happened. Facilities emailed me again. This time about the budget. Apparently, the internal cost of maintaining my office space, the one still under my lease ID, had never been updated in the department's financial tracking system, which meant for the past month, the expense reports were off. It looked like I was still occupying it, but someone else's cost center was being charged. That created a discrepancy. I kept it simple. I've remained in the office assigned to me. I was never notified of an official reassignment. Then I attached a copy of the lease ID confirmation from before. They escalated it. Quietly, but I could tell. There was a ripple. A few days later, our department lead, 2 levels above my director, dropped by unexpectedly. First time he'd spoken to me in over a year. He was polite. Asked how I was recovering. Mentioned that he'd heard there was a bit of a mix-up while I was out. I just said, "I'm back where I belong now." The next week, we had an all-hands alignment meeting called by leadership. Just a check-in, supposedly. But the tone was off. My director gave this long, vague speech about communication breakdowns and learning opportunities. She never named names, but everyone knew. Then the department lead chimed in, talked about honoring tenure and not mistaking visibility for value. Connor didn't say a word the whole meeting. He stared down at the table like he wanted to disappear. Later that day, HR sent out an anonymous feedback survey about leadership transparency. Then the whispering started again. Only this time, it wasn't about me. I wasn't trying to cause problems. I really wasn't. I just wanted my job back, the one I had before I got sick. But when you make people uncomfortable just by existing, they start trying to push you out in quieter ways. After the alignment meeting, things got weird. My director suddenly wanted to set up weekly one-on-ones. It was the first time she'd asked to meet with me since I'd returned. I agreed, out of curiosity more than anything else. In our first one-on-one, she smiled too much. Kept calling me by my full name, which she never used before. Told me how much she appreciated my institutional knowledge. Said she wanted to bridge the gap and that maybe we'd gotten off on the wrong foot. I just nodded and said I was happy to be back. The next week, she asked if I'd be open to mentoring Connor. That stopped me cold. I asked her to repeat it, just to be sure I'd heard right. She said it again, like it was a natural next step, as if the whole office debacle hadn't happened, as if I hadn't been erased and replaced, and then quietly unerased. I didn't say no. I didn't say yes either. I said I'd think about it. I didn't have to. A few days later, someone from accounting, a woman I used to work with closely, messaged me privately. She told me something I wasn't supposed to know. Apparently, a big internal audit was happening, focused on cross-department budgets. Leadership had been overspending in a few places, shifting costs to cover certain roles that weren't technically approved yet. My office's lease discrepancy had triggered a deeper review. Connor's position had been flagged. He was hired under a contract-to-hire label, but they'd fast-tracked him into a salaried role without full approval. They were using discretionary funds to pay his salary temporarily, funds that weren't authorized for full-time headcount. Which meant, not only had they tried to shove me out, but they did it illegally on paper, by creating space for someone who technically didn't even belong there yet. That explained why the budget report caused such a panic. I had unknowingly exposed a paper trail. I started digging, slowly, carefully. Nothing illegal, just reading what was already there. I went back through old project folders. I found edits with Connor's name on them, slides I'd written, copied word for word. Reports he submitted that matched mine from months before. The formatting was slightly different, but the phrasing, the bullet points, even the typos, identical. He wasn't just mimicking me. He was recycling my work. Then came the kicker. I was asked to attend a growth and transition seminar hosted by HR. Mandatory, they said, for all employees over 35. That was the moment I knew what was really happening. This wasn't just a culture shift. It wasn't just favoritism or poor communication. They were clearing out the older staff, slowly, strategically, and replacing them with younger, cheaper talent who looked better in slide decks and all-hands Zoom calls. People like me, who'd built the bones of the department, were being squeezed out. Quietly. Methodically. The only reason I hadn't been cut yet was because I'd kept records. Because I had history. And because I wasn't afraid to sit quietly and let them dig their own grave. I didn't push back on the seminar. I went. I sat through it. I filled out the forms. And when I got home that night, I opened a new file on my desktop. Timeline of events, office reassignment plus role reallocation. I wasn't out for blood. Not yet. But I wanted the truth documented. Every meeting, every quote, every copied file. Not for revenge. For proof. Because something was happening behind the scenes. And it wasn't just about me anymore. It took another 3 months. I stayed quiet the whole time. I showed up, did my work, logged every change I noticed. I kept copies of everything. I said yes to meetings, yes to projects, even yes to mentoring Connor, though he avoided every session we scheduled. I let it all play out. I wasn't in a rush. Then the audit results came out. Not public, not at first. But you could feel the shift. The head of HR resigned suddenly for personal reasons. Then 2 mid-level finance managers were restructured and gone by end of week. Rumors started about misreported hires, about budget fraud, about someone hiding salaries under the wrong cost centers. One morning, I got called into a meeting with the department lead. My director was there too, sitting stiffly at the end of the table, arms crossed. The lead asked how I was doing, asked if I had any concerns I hadn't raised. I said, "I'm fine." He nodded, then slid a folder across the table. Inside was a memo, an apology, quiet, internal, but real. It acknowledged that I had not been properly communicated with during my sick leave, that my office had been reassigned without my consent, that I had returned to find my responsibilities shifted inappropriately. No names were listed, but the language was clear. They messed up and they knew it. They offered me a promotion, lateral in title, but with a raise and full project ownership. A dotted line reporting structure that skipped my director entirely. Full autonomy. My choice of team. I didn't say yes. Not right away. Instead, I asked to go home and think about it. That night, I finished my documentation. The timeline. The files. The notes from the HR seminar. All of it. Then I emailed it, not to HR, not to legal, not to my boss. I sent it to the CEO. Not out of anger. Not to take them down. Just a short message. I wanted to share what happened while I was out sick. This isn't about pay or titles. It's about people. I didn't expect a reply. I got one 3 days later. He thanked me. 2 weeks after that, my director was let go. Leadership misalignment. That was the phrase used. Connor was moved to another department, Not fired, but no longer on our team, no longer in strategy. He got reassigned to an operations role no one wanted. He stopped updating LinkedIn after that. The office? I gave it up. I didn't want it anymore. I asked for a new workspace, one with more light, down by the windows where the interns used to sit. I brought in a plant from home, started fresh. But I kept the old nameplate, the one my daughter made. It's in my drawer now. Not because I need it, but because I earned it. And no one, not Connor, not my boss, not anyone else playing games up the chain, can take that away from me. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I waited. And in the end, they exposed themselves. All I had to do was survive long enough to watch it happen.